Did you know the average American home contains more than 300,000 items? That is not just clutter. That is a lifetime of memories, of birthdays and holidays, of raising children and building a home. Every object tells a story. And as we get older, those stories become even more precious. But here is the hard truth. Sometimes the things we hold on to start to hold on to us. What used to be comforting can slowly turn into a weight we carry, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. And if you are over 60, you probably feel that too. You look around and think, where did all this stuff come from? And more importantly, what do I do with it now? Let me tell you something right from the start. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean erasing your past or dishonoring your memories. In fact, it might be the most powerful way to reconnect with what matters most. Today, we are going to talk about decluttering, but not in the way you think. We are going to walk through the real, hidden challenges that seniors face when trying to simplify their homes, and how to move through them gently, with purpose, and without guilt. So stay with me, because the last insight in this video may just change the way you see your space and your story forever. 1. Letting go isn't losing. For many people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, decluttering is not just about cleaning out a closet. It is about confronting a lifetime of memories. Every item we pick up, a wedding photo, a faded concert ticket, an old jacket, carries a piece of the past. It is no wonder that letting go can feel so hard. It is not just stuff, it is our story. But here is something I want you to hear, and maybe even write down somewhere. Letting go is not the same as losing. You are not losing the people you loved. You are not losing the moments that shaped you. Those memories live inside you, not in the dusty box, not in the chipped teacup, inside you. One woman I spoke with, her name was Diane, told me about an old jewelry box she kept from her mother. She had not opened it in years, but every time she thought about giving it away, she froze. "It feels like I'm giving her away," she whispered, and I understood that deeply. But then she did something powerful. She took a photo of the jewelry box. She wrote a letter to her mother, tucked it inside, and said thank you. Then, with tears in her eyes, she passed the box on to her granddaughter. The memory did not disappear. It simply found a new home, letting go with love. That is not forgetting. That is choosing peace over guilt. That is making space, not just in your house, but in your heart, for the next chapter of your life. So before we talk about what to get rid of, I want to ask you something simple. What are you ready to carry forward? And what are you ready to lay gently down? 2. The guilt that silently piles up. If you have ever held something in your hands and thought, I do not even like this, but I can't throw it away, you are not alone. That quiet, heavy feeling, that is guilt. And for many of us, it is the real reason our homes stay full long after we are ready to let go. Guilt sneaks in without warning. It shows up in the form of gifts we never liked but kept out of obligation. It hides inside furniture we inherited but never use. It clings to clothes that no longer fit, not just physically, but emotionally. And guilt whispers, what if they find out I got rid of it? What kind of person gives that away? But here is something important. Keeping something out of guilt does not honor the person who gave it to you. It just clutters your space. And worse, it clutters your peace of mind. Let me share Diane's story again. After her husband passed away, she kept one of his old sweaters. It no longer fit her. She never wore it. But it hung in the back of her closet for 10 years. Every time she saw it, she felt two things: love and pain. Then one day, her grandson came to visit. He was heading off to college, and Diane offered him a few things for his dorm. He tried on the sweater, and it fit him perfectly. She watched him smile in the mirror, and suddenly, that weight in her chest lifted. "I let it go," she said, "but I didn't lose anything. I gained something." Here's the truth. The people who love you do not live in your things. They live in your memories, in your stories, in the way you speak their name and pass down their kindness. So if you are holding on to something out of guilt, I want you to ask yourself, do I love this? Do I use it? Would someone else appreciate it more than I do? If the answer is no, maybe it is time to say, thank you for being part of my life, and now I release you. Guilt does not need to guide your decisions. Love can. 3. Decluttering without a vision is like sailing without a map. Have you ever started cleaning or organizing only to end up surrounded by even more piles than before? You move one thing, then another, and suddenly it feels like nothing's really changed. That is what happens when we start decluttering without a clear vision. We are working hard, but without direction. A lot of people begin this process because they think they should. Maybe someone else suggested it. Maybe you saw a show or read an article. So you grab a few boxes and start somewhere random, the kitchen one day, the closet the next. But without a picture of where you're headed, it just feels like moving clutter from one corner to another. Diane, the woman I've mentioned before, told me that exact thing. She had good intentions, but after a week of sorting drawers and pulling items out of storage, she looked around and said, "It still feels like a mess." Then her daughter asked a simple question. "Mom, what do you want your home to feel like when this is all done?" Diane paused. She closed her eyes, and slowly she described it. She said, "I want it to feel peaceful. I want to walk through my house and not feel overwhelmed. I want space where my grandchildren can play without stepping over things. I want to see only the things that bring me comfort." That was the moment things changed for her. Once she had that vision, her choices became easier. When she picked something up, she asked, "Does this belong in the peaceful home I imagine?" And if the answer was no, she let it go. Here's your gentle challenge. Take a few minutes today to imagine your ideal space. What does it look like? How do you want to feel in it? What kind of energy do you want it to hold? You don't need a fancy design plan, just a feeling, a goal, a direction. Because once you know where you're going, every decision becomes a little bit clearer and a whole lot lighter. 4. The just-in-case trap. Almost every home has that one drawer or storage bin filled with things we are holding on to for some unknown future. We keep an old phone charger for a device we no longer own. We hold on to clothes that no longer fit, just in case our size changes. We store duplicate kitchen gadgets, extra blankets, rusted tools, and piles of plastic containers without lids, all because we tell ourselves, maybe I'll need this someday. And that little phrase, just in case, becomes the quiet reason clutter lingers in our homes for years, sometimes even decades. Diane faced this exact moment when she opened the hallway closet in her home. Inside were 2 spare toasters, a bundle of outdated remote controls, and clothing from a time long past. She looked at those items and realized something important. She had not used most of them in over 10 years. Still, a voice inside whispered that familiar line, "But what if I need it?" It was that voice that had kept those items on shelves and in corners far longer than they deserved. Not because she loved them, not because she used them, but because a part of her feared letting go of something she might want again. And that fear had quietly built a wall of clutter between her and the peaceful space she longed for. Here is the quiet truth we rarely say out loud. When we keep things just in case, we are often holding on to fear. The fear that we will not have enough, or that we will make a mistake, or that we will one day regret letting go. But in doing so, we trade away space, clarity, and peace for a moment that may never come. And what is even more important to understand is this: not using something for years is a sign. It is a sign that this item has already served its purpose, and now it is simply taking up space where something more meaningful could live, whether that is a favorite chair, a moment of calm, or simply room to breathe. There is a gentle strategy that Diane used and that I encourage you to try. It is called the 6-month rule. If you have not used an item in the last 6 months and it is not something seasonal, like holiday decorations or winter clothing, it is time to seriously consider letting it go. If you are still not sure, you can use what we call the maybe box. Place the items you are hesitant about into a box, write today's date on the lid, and store it out of sight. If 6 months pass and you never think about those items again, donate the entire box without opening it. The decision is already made. The fact that you never missed them is the answer you were waiting for. Diane later told me that once she let go of her just-in-case clutter, she felt lighter, not just in her home, but in her body and her spirit. Her closets were easier to open, her shelves had room to breathe, and more importantly, so did she. And not once did she miss any of the things she gave away. Because letting go of just-in-case items is not about losing options, it is about gaining clarity. It is about trusting that if something truly becomes necessary, you will find a way to meet that need, without surrounding yourself with things that no longer serve you. Letting go of fear is never easy. But the freedom it brings, that is worth far more than any old gadget, garment, or gadget tucked in a drawer. The space you create when you let go, both physically and emotionally, makes room for something far more valuable: peace, calm, and a home that reflects who you are now, not who you were 20 years ago. 5. Trying to do it all in one weekend. One of the most common mistakes people make when they decide to declutter is trying to tackle everything all at once. Maybe you've done this too. You look around, feel fed up with the mess, and say to yourself, "That's it. This weekend, I'm getting it all done." You pull out the trash bags, open every drawer, and start piling things up, thinking that by Sunday night, your home will feel brand new. But here's what usually happens instead. The first hour feels productive. You're making decisions, moving quickly, and feeling proud. But then the emotions start to creep in. Each item reminds you of something: a person, a moment, a season of life that's long gone. The piles grow, and suddenly you're not just organizing things, you're reliving your entire past, one object at a time. And before long, your energy fades, your heart feels heavy, and your home looks worse than when you started. That's exactly what happened to Diane. She cleared out her whole weekend, determined to reclaim her space. But by the end of day 1, her house was a maze of half-finished piles. She sat down, looked around, and felt completely overwhelmed. Not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much. Decluttering a lifetime isn't like cleaning up after a holiday. It's emotional work. And when you try to do too much in a short amount of time, you don't just burn out, you freeze up. That's not weakness. That's a very human response to decision fatigue, which happens when your brain is asked to make too many choices in a row. So what's the better way? Start small. Really small. 1 drawer, 1 shelf, 1 little space. Set a timer for 15 minutes. Focus only on that. Then stop and celebrate the progress. Diane did this after her burnout weekend. She started with her bathroom cabinet, expired medications on the first day, old beauty products the next. And within 2 weeks, she had cleared the whole room, gently, peacefully, without stress. When you move slowly and steadily, you give your heart and mind space to breathe, and in the end, you actually move faster because you don't have to stop and recover. You just keep going, one calm step at a time. 6. Decluttering alone. The silent struggle. There is something deeply ingrained in many of us who have lived a long, full life, the belief that we should be able to handle things on our own. We raised families, managed households, built careers, overcame loss, and kept going. So when it comes time to sort through our belongings, it feels natural to say, "I'll take care of it myself." But what often begins as a sign of independence quietly becomes a burden we carry in silence. Diane told me that she felt embarrassed to ask for help. She didn't want her children to see how full her closets had become or how much she had kept over the years. She told herself it was her mess and her responsibility. But as the days went by, she felt more and more stuck. Each drawer she opened brought up memories she wasn't ready to face alone. She felt overwhelmed, not just by the physical weight of the clutter, but by the emotions behind every object, the grief, the nostalgia, the questions of what to keep and what to let go. And beneath it all was a quiet fear, the fear of being a burden. This is something many older adults feel. We don't want to take up space, to ask our children or friends for time they may not have. We think, they have their own lives, I'll manage this myself. But the truth is, decluttering is hard, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and no one should have to go through it alone. When Diane finally gathered the courage to ask her son for help, she expected a sigh or maybe a gentle excuse, but instead he said, "Of course, Mom, I'd love to help." That weekend, he and his wife came over. They went through boxes together, laughed at old photos, shared stories she hadn't told in years. What began as a task turned into a bonding experience, a moment of connection that neither of them expected, but both of them needed. Asking for help is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is a way of saying, "This matters to me, and I'd like to share it with someone I trust." Whether it is a family member, a friend, or even a professional organizer, bringing someone into the process can turn a lonely task into a shared memory. So if you have been quietly struggling, thinking you have to do it all on your own, I want you to hear this. You don't, and you're not meant to. Decluttering your home can also be a way to open your heart. And sometimes, the most meaningful part of that process is not what you let go of, but who you let in. 7. Piles with nowhere to go. You've done the hard part. You've gone through drawers, sorted your shelves, made tough decisions. You've filled bags with clothes to donate, boxes with books and keepsakes you no longer need, and maybe even gathered a small pile of things to recycle or throw away. You should feel lighter, but instead, the clutter is still there. Just now it's sitting in your hallway or by the back door or in the garage. You've decluttered, but nothing's actually left the house. This is what I call the clutter limbo. It's that uncomfortable in-between stage where the decision has been made, but the items are still present, still visible, still quietly weighing on you. And sometimes, that's all it takes for doubt to creep back in. You walk past a bag of donations and think, maybe I should keep that coat, or those books. What if I regret this later? Before long, the clutter you already said goodbye to starts inching its way back in, not because you need it, but because you didn't have a plan to move it out. Diane faced this exact challenge. After several weeks of steady, mindful progress, her guest room had turned into a staging area for all the things she no longer needed. But there was one problem. She hadn't figured out what to do with any of it. Every time she walked by, it felt like unfinished work, and that took away from the pride she should have been feeling. She said it best, "I made all the right decisions, but I didn't follow through." So she sat down, made a list, and did some quick research. She found a local charity that accepted household goods. She called her city to check bulk pickup days. She even discovered a nonprofit that offered free donation pickup. Within 1 week, everything was gone, and just like that, The space she'd worked so hard to clear was finally open, not just physically, but emotionally. Here's the gentle truth. Clutter isn't really gone until it leaves your home. Making decisions is important, but taking action is what brings the peace you're looking for. So, before you begin your next decluttering session, take a moment to create a simple plan. Where will your donations go? Who can help you get them there? What's your deadline? The moment you watch those bags go out the door is the moment you reclaim your space. Fully, finally, and with a sense of real closure. And that's when the freedom begins. 8. Forgetting to celebrate progress. Sometimes the hardest part of decluttering isn't what you're letting go of. It's what you're forgetting to notice. And what so many of us forget to notice is how far we've already come. Diane had made incredible progress. Her bathroom was cleared, her closets were tidy, her kitchen counters finally had room to breathe. But even with all that behind her, she didn't feel proud. She didn't feel accomplished. Instead, she kept saying to herself, I still have the garage. I still haven't touched the attic. There's so much left to do. And that quiet little voice in her head began to convince her she hadn't done enough, even though she had already done more than most people ever do. This happens to so many of us. We look at what's left instead of what's finished. We measure ourselves by what's incomplete. And slowly, something joyful becomes something stressful. The sense of peace that should come from progress gets buried under self-criticism and impossible expectations. But here's what Diane's daughter said that changed everything. She walked into the house one afternoon, looked around, and said, Mom, your living room feels amazing. And for the first time, Diane paused, looked at what had changed, and smiled. I guess it does, she said. I just hadn't stopped long enough to see it. We need those pauses. We need to stop and notice what we've done, not just what we haven't. Because this journey isn't about perfection. It's about freedom. And freedom comes one little step at a time. So here's a gentle invitation. The next time you finish a drawer or a shelf or a room, stop and honor it. Take a photo of the before and after. Light a candle, play your favorite song, call someone and say, I did it. Even the smallest victories deserve recognition. Celebrating progress is not self-indulgent. It's essential. It gives your mind a reason to keep going. It reminds your heart that the work matters, and it helps you see yourself not as someone trying to catch up, but as someone actively creating a more peaceful, more present, more beautiful life. Because you are, and you deserve to feel proud of that. At the end of it all, decluttering is not really about stuff. It is about stories. It is about choices. And it is about the kind of life you want to live in the years ahead. For many of us, we've spent decades gathering, keeping, storing, and holding on, not just to things, but to memories, responsibilities, even roles we no longer need to carry. Now, maybe for the first time in a long time, there's a chance to ask a new question. What do I want my home, my space, and my days to feel like? Because that's what this is really about. Not organizing for the sake of appearances or clearing rooms just to please others. It's about you, your peace, your comfort, your ability to move through each day without being weighed down by decisions, by clutter, or by guilt. And yes, it can be emotional. It can be tiring. But it can also be one of the most empowering, healing acts you give yourself. So here's what I hope you'll remember. Start small. One drawer, one corner, one box. Let go gently, with kindness toward yourself. Celebrate every step, no matter how tiny it may seem. And ask for help when you need it, because you deserve support, not struggle. You are not too late. Your home is not too far gone, and your life still has room for beautiful, peaceful moments that haven't happened yet. If this video helped you take even one step forward, I invite you to share it with someone else who might need the same encouragement. Subscribe for more insight, more warmth, and more gentle guidance. Because life after 60 isn't about winding down. It's about living lighter, living better, and making space for what truly matters now.